Why bother voting? It isn't going to make any difference. And anyway, politicians, they're all the same, so it really makes no difference who gets in, right? Wrong. Let me give you 6 really quick reasons why you should vote, why you have to vote in reverse order of importance. So stay with me to the end because they're going to get meatier as we go through. Firstly, God wants us to engage prayerfully with political leadership. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, Paul writes this, "I urge that petitions, prayers, and intercession and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings, and for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in godliness and holiness." So if we want to be governed by leaders who will give us peaceful and quiet lives, we better involve ourselves in voting them into office. Secondly, Paul tells us in Romans 13 verse 1 that we should submit to political authority because God establishes it. Now, you and I are called to work in partnership with God to establish his kingdom. So if God establishes political authority and we're partners with God, then voting is actually a kingdom responsibility in the work of establishing godly governance in our nations. Thirdly, your vote really does make a difference. The idea that one vote won't matter just doesn't sit well with the Bible. In Matthew 5, Jesus talks about being the salt of the earth, and we know that it only takes a tiny bit of salt to make a huge difference when you're cooking a meal. In Matthew 17, Jesus also talks about faith the size of a mustard seed. Again, it doesn't take much to make a huge difference. There's other examples as well, but you get the point. Something seemingly too small to be noticed can make all the difference, and your vote is just like that. Fourthly, it is such a privilege to be able to vote. It's a real blessing from God, and I think it dishonors that blessing if we just take it for granted and don't engage. Think of the people in so many countries who would love the opportunity to have a meaningful vote for political leadership in North Korea or Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq and so many other countries. We have the privilege of voting in a free democracy, and we shouldn't abuse that privilege. Fifthly, choosing not to vote is still a vote. If you abstain from the process, you're still casting a vote, the vote of not turning up. Deciding not to engage with a situation is still an engagement. Think about the parable of the Good Samaritan. The priest and the Levite chose to abstain from getting involved. They chose to not engage with the suffering of the man who'd been attacked by robbers. But their decision not to get involved was still a form of engagement, even if a negative one. God holds us responsible for our actions in life, even the action of inaction. And so we need a pretty good reason not to engage with voting for political leadership. And finally, my number one reason why you should vote is this. The Christian faith is intensely political, and as Christians, we cannot and should not try to avoid politics. Now, some people say that we should keep politics out of religion, but Desmond Tutu once said, "People who say religion and politics don't mix must be reading a different Bible from me." Politics is on almost every single page of the Bible, from Moses leading the people out of slavery in Egypt, through the judges and kings in the Old Testament, to the prophets calling for social justice, the Psalms written about political leaders, John the Baptist challenging authority, Jesus teaching on taxation, the early church's interaction with the Roman Empire, and so much more. Christianity is an intensely political religion, and we cannot avoid that if we want to stay true to the gospel. I did a more in-depth video on that, which you can watch here, a reflection on the Magnificat in Luke chapter 1 that I hope will be helpful. Anyway, there's 6 reasons why I think it is your Christian duty and privilege to vote for political leaders. If you want to know who you should vote for as a Christian, well, I answer that question in this video. So click on to that and I'll see you over there.